So how long does it take to learn piano? My name is Tia. Welcome to Practical Piano. In this video, I'm going to outline the 5 different methods that we usually use to learn and to teach, and the 3 kinds of people that they work for, and how long it's going to take to reach your goals in piano, to learn piano. People have different goals, and different goals are good because they reflect who you are. Defining our own goals is helpful because it outlines clear targets. When you know the target you want to hit, then you can start thinking about how to develop routines that help you reach the target. So the 3 different people that I'm going to talk about who have 3 different goals are the in and out people, the hobbyists, and people who are on their healing journey. There's another category of people who are performers, professionals, and teachers, and we can talk about that in a different video, but for this video we're going to focus on people who want to be in and out, the hobbyists, and people who are on their healing journey. I'm going to break down the different methods that each of these 3 people might prefer, and I'll explain how long it might take you to reach your goal. Now there are 4 methods to learning piano that are very common, and then the 5th method plays on those 4. The reason there are multiple ways to learn piano is because there are multiple learning styles and multiple teaching styles. There are 4 basic learning styles. There are visual learning style, auditory learning style, reading and writing learning style, and tactile learning style. Everybody thinks their way is the right way. So as I go along, I'm going to tell you which ways I'm biased towards that usually work for me when I teach students, and that usually work for my students, but the other ways aren't wrong. And other people teach those ways, and they might be like, my way is the best way to learn piano. It may be coming from them, and it may be the best way for their students. But there's no wrong way to go about learning piano. Now you're going to resonate mainly with one way, and you might use a combination of different ways. You might even resonate with 2 ways. Because all of these elements are important to learning piano, it's just what are we going to focus on? What is the main route that we learn from? Every teacher has a route that works the best for them for teaching, and every student has a route that works the best for them for learning. Here are the 4 basic routes you might take to learn piano. Number 1, my personal least favorite, but still works well for plenty of people, is the chord method. Now with the chord method, rather than learn individual notes, you learn to memorize a lot of chords, and you learn how you move from one chord to another and what works well together and in what context and what doesn't work well together. And I don't like this route because I find for most of my students it's overwhelming, and it relies heavily on theory, which is one of my least favorite things. I will be teaching theory anyways because it's an essential part of music. And I don't think less of people who learn with the chord method or who understand the chord method. I actually find it very intriguing and very impressive that they can memorize so much, but it doesn't work for me. I usually don't put my students that way. Now if someone was adamant they wanted to learn the chord method and they wanted to come to me to teach them, I would do my best to work with. Because my teaching style is adaptable and eclectic, I would still try and work with the student to help them achieve their goal. That is one route that you can take to learning piano. The second method that you can use to learn piano is to learn by ear. I am not gifted with a spectacular ear, and so my focus has never been on ear. So I am biased against learning by ear, but lots of people have great ears, and lots of teachers specifically teach by ear. And there are whole courses devoted to aural, A-U-R-A-L, oral learning. When you learn by ear, you identify sounds and you correlate them to what's on the piano, and you can basically pick out the notes of a song by listening to it and then copying it. This method works especially well for people who already have a gifting for their ear or access to oral learning. It will be good for auditory learners. So people who learn well by listening will learn well by ear. The third route that you can take to learn piano is by finding beginner YouTube tutorials and following the tutorials. Now, I've had several students learn songs that they really wanted to learn by following these tutorials. And the only advice I'm going to give you for it is when you have the tutorials, they lay the piano on the bottom of the screen and they have notes drop in, usually as lights or colors. And they drop in and land and tell you which note to play. When you're following those, they often move too fast for when you're starting. So at the bottom right hand corner of your YouTube video, there's a gear icon. If you click on the gear icon, it will show you playback speed. If you click on playback speed, it'll bring up a little window of numbers. The lower numbers, the ones that are smaller than 0, those are your slow speeds. And the bigger numbers, the ones bigger than 0, are your faster speeds. So I highly recommend, if you follow YouTube tutorials to learn, take your settings down to a very slow speed and repeat small sections until you get them. Don't try and get the whole song in one sitting. Get a small section of the song in one sitting and continue on with that. There are lots of things you can learn from YouTube videos, like theory, techniques, how to play your scales, and so on. And for people who are very good at self-teaching, this is an excellent way to learn. The fourth method that you can take to learn piano is to learn to read music. And this is my favorite method. I find it very empowering for people because it's like learning how to sound out your words. Once you learn to sound out your words, you can identify any word. And then you can read any book. Just denser books with harder vocabulary are going to be harder to read than See Spot Run. So just like reading a book, if you learn to read music, you can play any song. Just more difficult songs, denser songs are going to be harder to read. I'm a very independent person and I love to foster independence in people. And so this is a very good method for that. Your fifth way of learning, it's not really a fifth way of learning, but it's to go to a teacher. And if you go to a teacher, basically what they're going to do is walk you through the other 4 ways of learning. And the teacher will probably specialize in one of those methods, and depending on the teacher may adapt to your particular needs if your learning style is outside the method they specialize in. What you do when you take lessons is you want to be very clear with your teacher what your goals are, if you have goals. If you don't, you might just want to go in and be like, well, teach me the way that you teach and we'll see how it goes. And I've had several students do that and they still make it pretty good. But if you have an idea in your head before you go to lessons of, I want to learn this song and I want to learn that song, or I want to be taking an exam in 2 years, or I want to perform in a recital. So whatever your goals are, if you have them, give them to your teacher. And if your teacher is supportive, good teacher. And if your teacher is like, well, I don't know about that, or wow, you'll never be able to do that, or wow, that'll take you 20 years, tell you what, find a different teacher. Most things in piano can be achieved within 1 year and don't need to be achieved in 20. Depends on what we're talking about, but yeah, you don't need 2 decades to accomplish most things in piano. Okay, so to achieve your goals with any of these methods, you need to spend about 10 minutes to 1 hour as frequently as possible in practice. The longer you practice and the more frequently you practice, which is actually more important, the faster you'll reach your goals. So, none of these methods is the wrong way to learn piano. It is the right way to learn piano for certain people. Some ways work better for some people than others. For instance, if you were going to try and teach me by ear, that did not work as well as me being taught by sight. To teach me by ear does not work as well for me as watching someone do a YouTube tutorial. It's actually easier for me to follow a YouTube tutorial than it is to learn by ear. So you need to identify your strengths and your weaknesses, and that will help you identify your learning style. The great thing about having all these different methods is that pretty much anyone can learn piano. You just need to find the right way. Let's move on to the 3 categories of people. First, we're going to talk about in and out folks. So you're an in and out person. If you've started piano, you have a little goal in mind. You're like, I want to learn this song, or I want to learn this set of songs, and then I want to be done piano. Or I really want to impress somebody with this music, then I'm done piano. So if you're looking at like a 1 to 2 years tops in piano, your best learning methods are going to be by ear, if you have a good ear and if you could do it, the chord system, because you can play a lot of impressive sounding songs on top of several series of chords, the YouTube tutorials to help you learn those specific songs. Those are probably going to be your fastest routes. Reading is going to be a slightly slower route, but you should learn to read if your goal is to play a classical piece that's advanced intermediate. Now, if you're playing beginner songs, what do I mean by beginner? So something like Jingle Bells, you can learn that in about 2 weeks. Most people can learn that in about 2 weeks. You want to learn your favorite song from the radio? That might take you a month or 2 of consistent practice. Most songs that people like and enjoy, even in the classical realm, like Fier Elise, you can find easy versions for. And then you can learn these songs very rapidly because they're simpler than the originals. But if your goal is to play intermediate advanced piano songs, so pretty much anything by Chopin, the Beethoven sonatas, Bach sinfonias, something like a Scott Joplin rag, you can find like super easy versions of those, but if you're wanting to play the original, you need to dedicate 1 to 2 years to practicing just that song. And if you're going to play anything like that, these are more classical type music, if you're going to play the originals, learn to read, because it will get you farther, I believe, than trying to work it out by ear or by the chord method. You're going to have a lot to memorize if you do that. These are very intense songs, so you either need memory like an elephant or learn to read. Now, the second category of people I want to talk about are the hobbyists. So you love piano, you've been wanting to play piano for a long time, and you finally have got the chance to play piano. Now, you might have some specific goals in mind, like songs you want to learn, you want to take an exam, you want to play in front of people. Maybe you really like theory, you want to learn some theory, or you want to write your own music. But I'm going to assume, because this is something you already really love, your heart is set on it, I'm going to assume you're in for the long haul, so at least 5 years. And I'll assume because you're a hobbyist and you love piano and what you want to do is pick up the skill, it's not so much about playing these songs because you want to play these songs, but you also want to play piano. It's not about taking the exams because you want to take the exam, but you also want to continue in piano after. So if that's where you're at, basically what your primary goal is, your first goal, before you actually reach those things, is you want to establish a firm foundation in piano so that you have skills that you can apply to all your different goals that will serve you over a long period of time. So to establish a firm foundation in piano, it's going to take you about 1 to 2 years. Now, I'm going to outline for you the timeline I usually see hobbyists move through their music and establish that foundation. So this will be from the perspective of, I usually teach people to read music, and they're coming to lessons every week, and they're dedicating some practice as often as they can. So on that timeline, to complete your first couple of songs, you can do that in 1 or 2 weeks, something like Jingle Bells. And this is if you're starting from scratch, you're just learning to read the notes for the first time. This is adult. If you're for very young children, it might take 3 to 4 weeks, but for anyone about 8 years old and up, you'll learn your first song in the first week or 2 maybe 3. Of course, the more you practice, the faster you'll succeed. Now, to learn to read music relatively fluently, it'll take about 6 months to get all the basics down, and you'll still be a little slow. After about a year, that's when people naturally start to pick up speed. Then about 2 years in, you'll be at an excellent reading level. That doesn't mean you'll be able to sit down and read a super difficult song really fast, but you'll be able to sit down and read a song at your level pretty well. If recitals are something you're interested in, you'll be ready for your recital in your 1st or 2nd year. Now, emotionally, you might not be ready for your recital. But as far as your playing skill level, to be safe, let's say the 2nd year that you're in piano lessons, you'll be ready to do a recital. A lot of people can do it in their 1st year even. We just prep the one song a little extra. If your goal is to take an exam, you want to spend 1 or 2 years getting your foundational reading in, and then you'll spend between 1 year and 2 years preparing for your exam. Most exams take a little over a year to complete and polish your material. If your focus is composing, so that means you want to write your own music, you'll be able to start writing your music as soon as you're able to read your music. So a few months in, you can start jotting notes. And then what you can do is you can bring it to your teacher, you can play what you're trying to play, and they'll read your notes and they'll go, oh yeah, okay, what you're doing there is actually this, and they can correct your writing, show you where you went wrong, and help you figure out what the errors in your thinking are. If you're writing very simple music, you might be able to start writing it in the first few months. I would say after about a year in lessons, you'll be getting really comfortable with reading your music, and you'll be more equipped, better equipped to write your music. Now, as a hobbyist, you can also take lessons and you can learn by ear, or you can learn the chord method, and there are plenty of courses online that you can learn from as well. I'm not super familiar with these methods, although I would teach them if someone came. I would do my best. So I'm not going to go into details here about these different types of methods when you're a hobbyist. Other teachers on YouTube cover these methods extensively, and so if you want to learn with those methods, I'll leave that research to you. Finally, the folks who are on their healing journey. This will be for if you have realized that you're in a difficult situation, or you've recently left or are leaving a difficult situation, or if a massive event happened in your life that shook it all out and now you have nothing. You have no stability. Your life is in shambles around you. If that's you, you're probably looking to piano as something to focus on, to help you heal, to help get you back in touch with who you are, and to recover from your psychological and emotional wreckage. If that's your situation, here's what you need to know. Piano is a great choice for you. When your life falls apart, you need something specific to help ground you. You need small, clear, concise goals to reach, and you need to feel accomplishment even in small areas. And you can find that in piano. Don't worry if you're not sure you'll be in it a long time. For some people, the thing that stops them from starting something new is the idea that I have to be invested 100% for the rest of my life or it's not worth doing. Don't go there. Don't worry about that. Piano might be just what you need while you heal, just for this healing season. It might be something that you pick up for several years, and it might be something you carry with for the rest of your life. But whatever it ends up being for you, it's okay that that's what it is. Whether it's temporary or permanent, there's no shame in trying something and then putting it away when it's not time anymore. Piano can be what you need it to be. The main question of this video is, how long is it going to take me to learn piano? And for you, I'm going to say that's not where you want to focus at this point in your life. I'm going to ask you not to worry about a specific outcome. You have enough to worry about. Get your life in order before you make any huge goals. You don't want to be saying, I'm going to do an exam in 1 year. Give yourself some time to recover first. When you start something new in this season of your life, give yourself a small time frame. So for now, decide you're going to do piano seriously for 1 month. At the end of a month, go, do I want to keep going or do I want to quit? Is it not for me? If it's not for you, set it aside. If you want to keep going, set yourself up 1 more month. And at the end of the month, reassess again. And then aim for the 3rd month. At the end of 3 months, reassess again. How do you feel about it? Do you feel good about it? Do you feel confident? Do you want to keep going? Or do you need to set it aside? It's not for you. If you decide to keep going, set it this time for 6 months. You've already made it 3. Let's make it 6. If you need to, keep going month by month. But if you're kind of recovered a little bit more, maybe you can aim for 6. Reassess. Get to the end of the year. Reassess. If you have a music studio nearby, you may be able to rent a piano for a few months to see if it's right for you. And if not, you can order pianos even on Amazon for as cheap as like $300 to $500. So if you think you're not sure if it's right for you, get something cheap like that or rent a piano. Now for your specific goals, because I've said don't set yourself big goals. Instead, set yourself little goals. For your specific goals, set yourself, I want you to sit at the piano every day. And you can turn the piano on, open your book, look at your music. And if that's all you can do, that's all you can do. And that's good enough. And then when you've done that a few days and you can do a little more, turn the piano on, open your book, play a few notes. When our lives fall apart and we have to recover our identities, our individual selves, that's really where you have to start. You have to start from 0 and work your way up very gradually. So once I had a student, I've had a few students that have started back up from scratch like that. But this particular student had been pursuing piano for a few years, and they were in a traumatic situation and were covertly coerced to stop playing. And at the time I was like, well, I don't know, you love piano, but if you want to stop, let's stop. So she stopped. And then later she got out of the situation and she was like, I need to pick up piano again. But her life had fallen apart. And so she at first could only practice for about 3 minutes before she had a trigger. And so I said, okay, practice for 3 minutes every day. And she was like, okay. And so she did for a while. And then eventually she was able to get up to 4 minutes without a trigger, and 5 minutes without a trigger, 7 minutes without a trigger, 10 minutes after a long time without a trigger. Be willing to start small and be gentle on yourself. Be patient with yourself. If this is the situation you're in, I don't want you to worry about big goals. I want you to put into whatever you can put into piano. So when you put into it, you're putting into yourself. So I want you to put into yourself whatever you can put in. And don't worry about your progress. If you make it to the piano that day, you made progress. Now, as for if you're on your healing journey, what learning style will you be using? So out of those 5 things that I talked about earlier, what will you be using? I'm going to make 2 clear suggestions for you, but you don't have to take them. Really, you need to take the route that works the best for you. So if these don't fit, don't take them. You can take or leave this advice. It's all in your hands. It's your judgment, and it's your healing journey. Now, the first thing I'm going to suggest is that you get a piano teacher for your lessons, and I have 3 reasons why. 1, going to someone every week, connecting with someone is going to help you heal. Humans are social creatures, and being around other people helps us. 2, you're going to have someone else who's going to help you define really small goals and who's going to encourage you whenever you make progress and celebrate with you, if you found the right teacher. 3, you'll get regular feedback on how you're doing. And you really need encouragement and feedback as you're rebuilding yourself, especially if you've been receiving negative feedback from your environment for a long time, which is what's happened if you're coming out of trauma or abuse. However, when you pick a piano teacher, you have to pick the right one. Now you don't have to pick ahead of time. You can try them out and don't worry about offending them. Just, yeah, it's not right for me, and move on. You can say no. You need to pick your piano teacher carefully because you want to be leaving your lessons feeling encouraged and capable and clear. You want to leave a little higher than you were when you came in, or at least the same. What you don't want is to feel diminished, discouraged, ashamed, confused, incapable, small. If your teacher makes you feel that way, if you leave the lesson, you go home to practice, and you feel all those feelings, you got the wrong teacher. And you need to change your teacher immediately. Take care of yourself and do that. Now, my second suggestion to you is that you learn to read music if you're sighted. If you don't have sight, you can take specialty lessons. You can find a Braille instructor. Being able to read music is empowering because, like I said earlier, if you can read anything. If you can read music, you can play any song. Just harder ones will take longer, easier ones will take shorter. So if you can learn to read, this whole world opens up for you in piano. The second way that reading is really, really good for you is that it's going to be very stable. When we write music, all the details are outlined on the page. You don't have to worry about things changing. You don't have to think about the contexts of chords, like if you're using the chord method. And you don't have to worry that you got a note wrong, like if you're trying to use your ear. Written music doesn't change on you. That is grounding. That's a solid thing you can lean on when your world is falling apart. And you'll know when a song is done because you'll understand everything on the page and you'll be able to play it. So it's very well defined. It's very clear. I would caution you against self-teaching when you're healing from trauma because you're generally already coming from a place where you're not sure of yourself. And self-teaching with piano can be very confusing because there are all these different methods. And when you go to self-teach and you look for resources, there's going to be a lot of things clouding, a lot of extra information you don't need. So that's why I recommend going to a teacher, because they'll help you sort out all that confused stuff and they'll present you a clear path. The last thing I'm going to say for people who are on their healing journey, be very patient with yourself and don't compare yourself to other people. I've heard someone say that people aren't all that different, so they'll all learn the same speed, and that's not true. There are many different learning styles, and if you're one learning style and you try to learn a different way, that's going to slow you down. If you're traumatized, all of the weight on your psyche and on your heart are going to slow you down from this process. You know, if you've lived in trauma, it feels like you're walking through a swamp up to your neck. You can hardly move. So if that's where you're at, you can't compare yourself to other people, because that's like comparing two people running a race, but one has a broken leg and a cast. We don't expect that person to win. we expect them to finish the race, and they'll be able to, and it's going to be hard and painful. So don't compare yourself to other people when it comes to piano, because you're running with a cast and they're running with no cast. You're running with a broken leg. They're running with perfectly healthy legs. What you've been through has changed your thought processes and your emotions. And when you're recovering, when you're in your healing journey, you're struggling to rebuild your personhood at the same time that you're learning to play piano. You're not just learning to play piano. Other people are learning to play piano. We're all learning to play piano. But you're rebuilding yourself at the same time, and that's really hard. So don't focus on other people's progress. One of my mentors says, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who other people are today. Other people don't matter. You matter. So those are the 5 learning methods, and the 3 people with very different goals and very different timelines. Now before we go, if you're interested in taking piano lessons, I'll leave my email in the description below. Feel free to reach out. I teach on Sundays. We can do every week or bi-weekly. We can do a half hour, 45 minutes, or 1 hour, whichever works better for you. I generally adapt my teaching to my students' needs. So whether you're in and out, or a hobbyist, or on your healing journey, I can teach you. Whether you can sit and play for 3 minutes a day, or whether you can dedicate a few hours a day, I can teach you. I have lots of experience teaching people with complex PTSD, people whose lives are falling apart. I also have experience teaching tactile learners, visual learners, reading and writing learners, and I can do some auditory learning. I've also taught people who have been told they're terrible at piano, which is not true, and I'm sorry if someone's told you that. I can teach beginners right from scratch. I can teach you if you've dabbled in piano, or if you used to take lessons, or if you have been taking lessons all along, and I can prepare people for exams up to RCM level 8. If you're not sure where you want to go with your lessons with piano, I can help you develop some direction, find some goals, and then we can break down your goals into smaller, manageable tasks. The only thing you need is a piano, or a keyboard, some decent audio, internet connection, and then we're good to go. Thank you for joining me for this video. I hope that it's helped you figure out what your learning style is, or what your goals are. If you like the video, please like it. If you know anyone else who would also enjoy it or find it useful, please share. If you have any feedback or you want to tell me how your practice is going, leave it in the comments. And if you would like more, subscribe. Bye.